Hello, welcome to Sparkcast, episode numero uno. This is our maiden voyage, so to speak. So welcome. My name is Natan Cohen. I'm the Senior Director of Customer Success here at Logi Analytics, and I can think of no better topic for our maiden voyage than SecureKey integration end-to-end. What is SecureKey, you might ask? Well, if you're a Logi Info customer and you want to embed your Logi app with the parent application and have single sign-on in a secure fashion, then you're going to want to use SecureKey. So this is pretty important. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is going to be a hands-on demonstration of a SecureKey solution end-to-end. So if you need a little more introduction and time to learn about SecureKey, there are two really good videos on DevNet now. You can also review our product documentation. Before we get in the weeds, I just want to show you what I built and demonstrate that it works, because we kind of said it didn't. So this is a basic, simple ASP.NET web application. I've got a login page, login.aspx, and I'm going to log in as admin right now, and click login, and you see this beautiful dashboard. Now I'm going to go back to the login page and log in as myself, and you see a less exciting dashboard. But the point is that the dashboards are different, the users are different, there is the SecureKey integration, it actually works. I don't expect you to believe me. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of how this works. All right, my friends, the recipe for awesome sauce begins here in Logi Studio. I'm going to draw your attention to the security element. You're going to want one of these. The only required attribute in security is that you tell it what it's supposed to do. So for SecureKey, you're going to want to select, surprise, SecureKey. Now, a few other things we have to set that are also required or it's just not going to work. For starters, you have to decide which servers have the right to request a SecureKey, because it would be really stupid if anybody could request a SecureKey, because that's not really secure. So you want to lock this down by server. For me, I'm using my current computer, so I've got the loopback address in IPv4 format and the loopback address in IPv6 format, just in case my adapter is configured that way. So you do need that. The second thing you want to do is tell Logi where to look for roles and rights for each request to the server. So Logi will actually verify that you still have the same roles and rights you did the last time you requested a report. So in this case, you want to set it to session, because the roles and rights will be passed in via SecureKey, which I'll show you in just a minute, and it'll be saved to session state. You always want Logi to look there for roles and rights when you're using SecureKey. Finally, kind of obvious, security enabled true, otherwise it's not enabled, kind of counterproductive. So with that, I'm going to demonstrate that it does actually work. Here is my dashboard definition, and when I run it, denied. By the way, side note, don't actually let your users see this page because it contains all sorts of cool information like what version of Windows you're running, what your process identity is, and other stuff we don't want them to see. You should be redirecting errors. That's actually an entirely different topic. Might be good for another Sparkcast, but if you do want to test that security works without actually going through the process of logging in with your parent application, the best thing to do is go back to the security element and utilize these two development attributes. So in this case, you're simulating the server that has the right to request the key, and then you're simulating a username that's kind of hard-coded. So in this case, I'm just going to copy and paste the addresses, right? But it's still my machine that will need to request the key. And I'm going to simulate that there's a username called admin, and then I'm going to save it, and I'm going to run it, and now you see the admin dashboard. All right? This is good for development in the land of Logi. Once you start actually connecting your parent app through, please, please, please don't forget to clear these attributes, because if you leave them, it will override whatever you're passing in the SecureKey connection. So let's take a look at how the parent app was built. Okay, it's razzle-dazzle time. Time to take a look at the Logi parent app and see how I built it. You're looking at login.aspx. I have a user input for the name, I have a user input for the password, and I have a button to log in. Super complicated, right? Here's where the magic happens. I'm telling the form to submit to a page called mydashboard.aspx. So this is actually where the magic happens. Here's a markup for my dashboard. There's not a lot of it, as you can see. You'll want to turn your eyes to this div here. This is using our embed API, which is also documented on devnet.logianalytics.com. And I want to point out some attributes here. I'm not going to bore you with the details of everything you can do with Embed API. There are a few ones here that are required, so I do want to go over what they do and how they work. First off, data-application URL. This is how your site will find the URL for the Logi app. Now, for demonstration purposes, I'm using HTTP. Okay, this is a no-no for production. Please use HTTPS, but let me catch you using HTTP. Data-report. This tells the Logi server what report definition you want to use. In this case, I'm using my dashboard. And then we have data-auto-sizing equals all. What you're going to get when you load this is an iframe, and auto-sizing allows the JavaScript to size the width and the height to fit the contents of the frame automatically. Now, what allows this to become an actual iframe with an actual dashboard? It's not magic. There's a script tag right here pointing to the Logi application in reference, and then pointing into our engine to rdembed.js. These contain the JavaScript methods for our Embed API to actually go through at runtime, replace the div with an iframe, and then everything else happens. It's also important that this lives exactly above the end body tag, which is best practice for JavaScript references. Now, where is the SecureKey attribute, you ask? It's not here. One of the reasons it's not here is because it's not known yet. Okay, the handshake has to be done at runtime, so it's impossible for you to just hard code a SecureKey. Also, if you did that, it wouldn't be very secure. So we have run@= server, and that tells the .NET server that when this tag is rendered, there's some code behind that has to run before it gets rendered. So let's take a look at the code behind. I've got a page_load function. Okay? In .NET, this will always run anytime this particular page is requested. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm grabbing the username that the user just typed. I'm hard-coding the role to administrator for demo purposes. FYI, this is where you're going to put your authentication code. You're actually going to do a real authentication. You're not just going to trust that the name they typed is actually who they are. And the third thing you're going to get for extra added security is the client's IP address, because we're actually going to bind the SecureKey to the IP address. Why do we do that? Well, let's say you've got a man-in-the-middle attack and someone hijacks the SecureKey and attempts to use it before you do. The Logi server will say, nope, sorry, your IP address doesn't match the one that's in my system, right? And you'll get denied access. So these are the three required pieces of information that you want to pass to Logi when you make the call to SecureKey. Now you might be wondering, how do I make the call to get the SecureKey? Well, again, this is a resource that we provide. Okay? It's part of every Logi application you deploy. So you want to make reference to RD template and then an active server page called rdgetSecureKey.aspx. This is actually the code that will be responsible for issuing secure keys. It'll check to make sure that the server making the request is in that list. Remember from earlier in the video, you have to be authorized to make a SecureKey request. And then you're going to pass it the username, a list of roles, delimited, and then finally the client browser address, which should be the IP address. Now I know what you're thinking, well, the IP address isn't the same. I know, sometimes that happens. If you know that the IP address is going to cycle often, in other words, literally from the time the key is requested till the time that it's used, you can actually disable this security feature and just type in 0.0.0.0. Right? And what you'll do is you'll effectively tell Logi, create the secure key, but don't bind it to an IP address. A little less secure, but still workable. Then what you'll do is you'll make an HTTP web request. Okay? This is actually running code behind, so it's the server making the request of a server. You'll get the response stream. The response stream should be a secure key. And then we have this magical line of code, which basically finds the control called div logi dashboard. Remember, that was my div in the previous page. And it will dynamically create an attribute called data-SecureKey and bind the key to that attribute. When this method finishes, the JavaScript will do its task. The SecureKey handshake will be established, and you'll see the dashboard. I'm also going to mention that you can add as many query string parameters to this call as you like. right? Keep it reasonable, not like 2 miles long, but maybe like 5 extra. Each attribute that you add will become a session variable in Logi at the time that the session is established with the client. Why is that useful? You might want to pass other things like the client's internal ID, the tenant ID, a database connection ID. And you can store all those in session state and use them for additional security parameters. So now that you understand how this works, we're going to talk about session management. You might think you're done with your SecureKey integration, but you're not, because you haven't managed your session state yet. Here at Logi, we practice responsible session management. So, first things first, session management is not controlled in Logi Info. It's actually controlled at the application tier level, which in this case, for me, would be IIS. As you can see in the screenshot, it's set to 20 minutes. This is the default. Now guys, please be reasonable. If you set this to 2 minutes, what you're basically telling me is, I can't get up to use the bathroom or my session will end. Not cool. Also, you may not be a coffee drinker. It takes about 5 minutes to brew a pot, 2 to 4 if it's a French press. Again, you want users to be able to brew the pot of coffee and come back and not have a session that's ended. So, maybe you're going to throw your hands up and say, okay, sessions will be 24 hours long. Please don't do that either. Long sessions consume valuable system resources. It's actually less secure. Your IT department will hate you if you do that. We don't want people to hate you. So please keep it reasonable. 20 minutes is actually pretty reasonable. So now that we've established how sessions are managed, let's take a look at how we do that within Logi. All right, we're going to talk about 2 things. First, how to manage the Logi session within the parent application. And second, how to properly terminate the Logi session from within the parent application. So we have this nice session timeout element. And the first decision that you need to make is whether you're going to keep the session alive or whether you're going to allow the session to terminate. Now, I know you just said no infinite sessions. Why are you telling me to have an infinite session? Well, it's not infinite. Remember, this is only controlled to the Logi parent application. The way it works is that it will constantly ping the Logi app if there's an active session in the parent application so that the Logi session doesn't die conditionally. Right? The user has to have a valid session in the Logi parent application. So if you'd like it to work that way, you can set auto keep alive to true, and then the parent application will constantly ping the Logi app. If you would prefer to have the Logi session be allowed to end, you can set this to false, and then you need to instruct the Logi server what it's supposed to do when its session ends. Right? I would recommend that you set it to the login page of the parent app so that the user can establish a new session. So, this is how you manage the session app within the Logi app. Now I want to show you how to properly terminate the Logi session from within the parent app. So if we go back to our login page, this is where the user logs in. Ideally, this is where you're going to establish a new session with both your parent application and the Logi application. Now it's pretty straightforward in terms of how to abandon and terminate your own parent application session because you have control over that. What's not straightforward necessarily is how you abandon the Logi session. You might have a logout button, and you might be able to code this into your logout button, but feisty users like me don't like to click the logout button. We just like to go back to the login page, then we might log in as someone else. So this method kind of covers both scenarios. On this page, if I scroll down, I've hidden from you an iframe. This iframe is actually a hidden iframe. And what it does is it makes a call to the Logi application and then a special active server page called RDN session. Okay? Now the reason this is an iframe is so that the session that's established with Logi will terminate with the client. It's important that we terminate the right session. This ensures that it's the client session that gets terminated. Now, this is cool, except what you can't control is how the user comes back to the login page. It would be nice if they clicked the link and actually reloaded the page. That would ensure the iframe gets executed. Sometimes users click the back button. So if they do that, there's this little piece of JavaScript here that detects a page visit of type navigation back, and then it will instruct the page to reload, thereby terminating the session. So that's how you can control the Logi session, both in terms of how you terminate it and how you can keep it alive or not. And now, finally, what I want to talk about are some more considerations for clustered environments, as well as some other features that we have for SecureKey. Let's talk about SecureKey considerations for high availability environments, in other words, a clustered environment behind the load balancer. The essential consideration is that SecureKeys by default are stored in application scope, and that's only within one server. So the problem is that you get a SecureKey from one server, try to log in and establish a session with the second server, and that second server has no clue about the existence of the SecureKey. So there are basically two solutions here. One is to write the SecureKeys to a shared folder, like a NAS drive, which is kind of icky in my opinion. So the better way to do it is to actually establish a database connection, store the SecureKeys in a central database, just like you're storing all the other shared resources. That's a much better way. So to recap, file system, boo, database, yay. Also, last but not least, you can't always assume that the SecureKey handshake is going to be successful. And it might be a little challenging to weed out the SecureKey errors from maybe other exceptions that your server will throw. That's where the login fail page comes in pretty handy. If there's a problem establishing a SecureKey connection, you might just send them right back to the parent login page, maybe run a process through an event log to mark the event so that the administrator knows. And just so you can see that work, if I go back to my dashboard, and I attempt to run it, rather than seeing the error that you saw before, you actually see the login page. Well, that, my friends, is SecureKey end-to-end. Thanks so much for watching. If this was helpful, please let us know, and we'll see you next time.